In the previous lecture, we have described our first API path with the help of OpenAPI specification. Like you can see here, we have followed the same structure that we have discussed previously. Under paths, we have defined a path called /categories. Under this endpoint path, we have mentioned what is the HTTP method type. So since in our case it's a GET, we have mentioned the GET. Under GET, we have to implement the operation object. So the operation object structure is what is the summary, what is the description, which we have mentioned. Request body we have skipped since it is a GET method. Under responses, we have defined the response object structure for the HTTP code 200. So whenever we are trying to describe our response, definitely we need to mention the fields description and content, followed by what is the content type. And inside that we need to mention the schema and what is the type of your response. Is it an array or object or string? So those kind of details we have mentioned by following the same hierarchy that you are seeing on the screen. We just not use the operation ID. So operation ID I will discuss towards the end of the course. The purpose of operation ID is trying to give a name to your entire operation object. It has some significance whenever you try to generate a server-side code with the help of OpenAPI specification. So we can discuss that when we are discussing about the code generation with the help of OpenAPI specification. So now let's try to understand how this is going to look like inside my Swagger UI. Definitely we can't force someone to simply look at my OpenAPI specification YAML file and try to understand the information. So that's a kind of very rude. Let's try to be friends with our consumers. So what we can do, our consumers, is you can explore the Swagger UI and you can try to understand my API very easily. So what they have to do is they have to scroll down on this page, and if you can see here, there is an API with the name categories. So we need to click on that. So when you click on that, it will further open. So you can click and open multiple times, but let me drag this towards the left hand side so that we can see this properly. So now here you can see, don't worry about this default. By default, OpenAPI specification will put all your APIs under the name default, but we are going to discuss in the coming lectures how we can group our APIs. Like if I click on this default, it will close all the APIs under it. So we're going to discuss this, but for now our API is listed under default. That should be fine. And the API name is /categories of type HTTP GET. And this is the summary, list all categories. And this is the description. So someone can click on that, it will close. And if they click on that, it will open. So now there are no input parameters for my categories path. So that's why these parameters are empty, and there is no request structure also. That's why there is no request structure here inside this UI. Coming to responses, you can see for response code 200, which is a success code, the description is list of categories and the media type is application/JSON. So similarly, we can mention the XML, any number of media types here. For now, we're just supporting the JSON. So that's why the dropdown shows only one value. Now here, if you scroll down further, you can click on the schema, and if you expand the schema, you can see this is a JSON representation because we are going to return the media type as JSON. So inside JSON, the array is represented with the square brackets. That's why you can see opening square bracket and closing square bracket here. And inside this array, we are going to have multiple objects, and inside each of this object, we are going to have an category ID of type integer, and the next value is name of type string. And if you click on this example value, it is also going to show you how an sample response is going to look like. So by default, for integer, the example value, the OpenAPI specification is going to consider is 0. And for name, it is going to consider the string. So in future, I'm going to explain you how we can make our examples looks like very professional with the actual or test data values. For now, I hope you are getting a sense like how helpful the Swagger UI is, even if someone is not too technical like our QA persons or business analysts, they can easily understand, like they don't need further explanations. So this way we can define the responses for any number of codes. So if you want to mention the response code for 500, you just have to repeat this entire structure one more time with the code as 500. And similarly, if you want to mention the content type for XML, you just have to repeat this whole content one more time with the content name as application/XML. So that's how easy it is. Once you start using this, I'm sure like you're going to like it and your work is going to be super easy. So with this, I'm assuming you are super clear about the basic path that we have created so far. So this is the first happy path that we have achieved inside our course. Kudos to your efforts. Before the next lecture, my recommendation is try to do some hands-on. You try to introduce a path with your own path name, same get method. Try to define all these values. Make sure you are comfortable with that YAML tab spacing structure or indentation. So that's the only thing that you need to be very careful here. Otherwise, you will keep getting compilation errors. And of course, the Swagger editor is there to keep you always on toes. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.